republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Board of Commissioners meeting for December 9th, 2013. The only thing we have on the agenda tonight is continued discussion of the potential acquisition of Ardrossan. Although I would like to announce that we had an executive session immediately prior to this meeting on December 9th, 2013, at which we discussed matters of personnel, litigation, and real estate. In addition, I'd like to announce that we had an executive session following our last meeting on December 2nd, 2013, at which those matters were also discussed. So we're going to go ahead right in. The purpose of the meeting tonight is for us to hear from you all. As you know, in the last week, there was a Phase 2 analysis that was posted to the internet, and I hope you all had a chance to look at that. And we have our finance director here, Bill White, and he is available to answer questions about that if need be. And I'd also like to remind everyone of our soft 5-minute rule. So we're going to ask that everyone keep their comments to 5 minutes, and if you get to the 5-minute mark, I will gently remind you that it's been 5 minutes, and out of courtesy to everyone, if we could wrap it up after 5 minutes, that would be great. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and open the floor and invite you all to come up and give your comments.
Hi, Mary Coe, 203 South Aberdeen Avenue, Wayne, on behalf of Friends of Radnor Trails. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the Township's proposed acquisition of Ardrossan parcels A, B, and C for open space. So many Township residents have already offered so many useful comments on so many aspects of the proposed acquisition. I'll try to avoid repeating what's already been said and focus my comments on one specific topic: the potential impact of the proposed acquisition on the Township's ability to expand and improve upon the Township's existing system of trails. The Township has already given considerable thought to how such an enhancement might play out. In Exhibit B to the Township's report, The Preservation of Portions of Ardrossan, the Township has illustrated where an additional 2 to 3 miles of trails could be located if the Township were to acquire Ardrossan parcels A, B, and C. The trails would consist of a simple mowed grass path around the perimeter of Parcel A, the so-called rye field, a macadam path suitable for bicycles along the boundaries of Parcels A and B along Darby-Paoli Road, a gravel path along the western edges of Parcels A and B, and a gravel path connecting Parcels A and B on property already owned by the Township. Each of these proposed trail surfaces is perfectly suited to its particular environment: meadow, forest, roadside. I don't think I have to convince you about the benefits of trails. Lord knows we've been there before, and the case has been made decisively. Trails are great. They are good for our health and fitness. They are good for simple transportation, getting from home to a park or to a school or to a friend's house. They are great for property values. They are great for building relationships with our neighbors and a shared sense of community. They are great for people of all ages and all levels of fitness. They connect us with our environment, both natural and built. Just about everyone in Radnor Township knows about, and I hope has walked on or biked on, the Radnor Trail, located along the former P&W Railroad right-of-way. I think we can all agree that it has been an overwhelming success, perhaps the most popular recreational amenity in the Township. The Radnor Trail has been written about in economic studies. It's been the subject of a Green Award in a local magazine, and it served as a model and inspiration for the recently completed Kinwood Trail in Lower Merion, our neighboring township, which had suffered from a serious case of trail envy for years before it finally got its own. But as popular as the Radnor Trail is, and as hard as I and many other Radnor residents work to make it a reality, it's not my favorite trail in Radnor. What, you mean there is another trail in Radnor? Well, yes. And it's a shame that so many Radnor residents don't know about this trail and have never been on it. It's the Skunk Hollow Trail, an unpaved hiking trail which starts behind the Willows Mansion and winds its way through the woods down into Skunk Hollow, along both sides of Darby Creek, and back to the Willows via an old mill race, old as in 250 years old, or along a ridge above Darby Creek. If you're feeling ambitious, you can extend your hike along Darby Creek following the Sawmill Trail. Along the Skunk Hollow and Sawmill trails, you will pass dozens of native wildflowers so beautiful in their natural setting, it's hard to believe you're not in a state park or a private nature preserve. You also pass stately oaks, tulip poplars, ash, beech, tupelo, and hickory trees, all natives of Penn's Woods. And for history buffs and fans of the built environment, there are the remains of mills and other structures here at the seat of Radnor industry in the 1700s. What does all of this have to do with the Ardrossan property? The Skunk Hollow and Sawmill trails are adjacent to Ardrossan parcels A, B, and C. By acquiring these properties, the township will be able to extend the Skunk Hollow and Sawmill trails to reach additional township residents who live near the Ardrossan properties and increase the benefits of the existing trail system. So often I have heard the lament that most of the Radnor Trail and the open space in Radnor is in the 3rd Ward, and when do the southern and eastern portions of the township get to share in the township's open space? Well, while most of the Ardrossan parcels are in Ward 3, a good portion is in Ward 4 and located very near Ward 5. Acquisition of this land will extend the benefits of the township's very best open space and potentially expanded trail network to the underserved southern and eastern portions of our community. Another benefit of acquiring the Ardrossan properties, particularly the B parcel, is that it would enable the township to divert that segment of the Skunk Hollow Trail that leads back to the Willows from its current location, the township's leaf composting area, to the northern or eastern side of Little Darby Creek.
Mary, I just want to let you know we're
Okay,
5.
I'm almost done. The current location is not only muddy and unattractive, but it is also not especially safe due to the presence of heavy machinery used for composting, wood chipping, and other activities at the site. And what about property values? As we all learned from the DVRPC and Green Space study, property values rise as a proximity to a trail increases. Within 1/4 mile of the Radnor Trail, property values rose an average of $70,000. This is consistent with an ad in the Suburban Wayne Times dated November 24th. The advertisement is for a sale of property with an asking price of $3.5 million, and it describes this choice property as just steps from the Radnor Trail. For those neighbors of Ardrossan who are concerned about denser housing within the viewshed of Ardrossan from their homes may somehow lower the value of their homes, I wonder if that's really true, if the homes to be built are of the quality one can expect based on our past experience with Ardrossan development. And isn't it possible that any potential decrease in property value would be offset by a property value increase due to improved access to protected open space and additional trails? Indeed, the Ardrossan neighbors would seem to have the best access to and the most frequent enjoyment of such open space of any township residents. One last thing. I spend a lot of time on the Skunk Hollow Trail. As you meander along the trail, heading from the Willows to Darby Creek, you encounter a series of bends or curves in the trail. In my wildflower journal, I have given these curves names like curve number 1 or curve number 3, except for one curve. I call that curve the Ardrossan curve. When you reach the Ardrossan curve, you can't help but stop dead in your tracks. At Ardrossan curve, especially in the winter when the leaves are down, you see a breathtaking sight in the distance, made even more breathtaking if you know the history behind this vision. It is Ardrossan, the grand old mansion, and the grassy hillside below it, what we now call the rye field. If you're lucky, you'll be able to make out the shapes of some black cattle, grazing so lazily on the hillside, standing so still, you have to keep watching until one moves, just to convince yourself they're real. Give this up? Unthinkable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Good evening. My name is Chuck Marshall. I'm the treasurer of Central Baptist Church, located in Wayne, and a member of the church's Ecology Mission Group. We have about 210 members in the congregation, and 49 live in Delaware County, and the majority of those live in Wayne. We'd like to think that as a congregation, we are moving towards stewardship of natural resources and are taking steps towards conservation and preservation in our own building and congregation. We have a 93% efficient gas boiler and have 48 solar panels on our education wing roof. We buy wind energy from Community Energy in Radnor, and we are working on a sustainability plan to make us a net zero carbon emissions congregation. We also recycle paper products and use Green Seal certified cleaning products. I am here on behalf of CBC's Ecology Mission Group, which implemented those programs. I am speaking in support of the Radnor Township purchase of 71 acres of land on the Ardrossan estate. We recognize that we as a church are a tax-exempt property owner in Radnor Township, and that we are not at this point obligated to pay some of the local taxes that will have to be raised to help pay for this purchase. But we will be paying the new stormwater fees, and our building was used as an example of the calculations of impervious surface when the presentations were being made, so we will be participating in Mr. Norsini's MS4 program. We do want to participate in other very direct ways for the planned uses of the 71 acres of Ardrossan. A number of CBCers would like to participate in a local community-supported agriculture program. We have several members now who travel lengthy distances to Charlestown and Kimberton to belong to CSAs and would like to be in a CSA that is closer to Wayne. We also would recruit volunteers to help plant trees on the planned Darby Creek buffer of the purchased tracts. We are mindful also of what preserved and undeveloped land does for water quality in streams like Darby Creek. I recently attended a meeting at the Hines Wildlife Preserve sponsored by the Darby Creek Watershed Association, the Delaware County Planning Department, and the Partnership for the Delaware Estuary. Alan Everett of Pennsylvania DEP gave a keynote presentation on macrobiotic life of streams, and if you're aware, macrobiotic life is a key index that you can use to compare streams and gauge the effectiveness of the water quality. They clearly showed in the presentations the relationship between developed land and the macrobiotic scores. They used Ethan Run as an example of a stream with high development, 69%, and a low macrobiotic score, macroinvertebrate score of 22, compared to Dismal Run out near Ridley Creek State Park, where it's a highly forested watershed drainage area and a score of over 50. And also that they showed where the macroinvertebrate index of Darby Creek decreases from about 40 down to 35 with the Ethan Run spring or run coming in from the side on that. So we definitely think that there's a clear relationship between undeveloped property in the watershed, non-pervious surfaces, and the water quality in streams, and we'd like to support the purchase of those tracts so that the water quality of Darby Creek can be maintained. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Don't be shy. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Mary Packer. I live at 27 Fairview Drive. I'm not going to be nearly as eloquent as the two people before me, but I came in support of the township purchasing the 71 acres. Mary said it so eloquently. It's magnificent. And there's never a good time to spend money But we already approved these dollars, and we're not spending everything that we had initially approved. I just see us being stuck if we allow this to not happen. We can't undo development. So with that in mind, I hope that we'll go ahead and make the purchase and preserve what we can. I also would like it, to, if I could mention to the Scotts, it would be wonderful for them to have a chance to leave a great legacy to a township that they've had a relationship with for a very long time. I can't see them foregoing development in total, but minimizing what they do provides them with an opportunity to leave behind in Radnor a forever legacy. So, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tom Crane from Cumberland Place in Bryn Mawr. I have a far-fetched analogy I want to try. I have a hard time driving by Goshen Road and 252 where the Toll Brothers are doing their development. And I began to realize what an enormous tract of land that was and how sad it is that it's going so rapidly. You drive by every day and it seems more and more is cleared. It's sort of overwhelming. And I think of that in terms of Ardrossan and how sad I'd feel if the same thing happened there. It's something we have a chance to avoid, and the example of what's happening on that intersection is a profound one. I hope you take it seriously.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening. Philip Wilson, 661 Church Road. How are you this evening? Why? Good, thank you. I have a proposal for the commissioners. I've been participating in these meetings for the last 3 times, and I think I've made clear what my position is as a longtime resident of Radnor, I want to see and continue to see the vista that I see on Newtown and Darby-Paoli roads. I've enjoyed it for 50 plus years, and I want to continue to enjoy it. So that's my desire. But I have had the same questions as I think Jim Higgins had asked, John Fisher had asked early on, is that I wanted to learn through this process. That's why I've sat through the meetings, listened to everybody's comments, because I've learned a lot. I've seen different things that I'm not a real estate developer or appraiser, so I've learned a lot through this process. But in doing such, I wanted to look at what the possibilities were, what the realities are, and I learned through reading all through the proposals and the information put on the website. So I really appreciate that. But here's my proposal. What I'd like to see, as and if we buy, and it's a collective we, Radnor Township, spends $10 million, something to that effect, to buy the 71 acres in Ardrossan and preserve my vista, as everybody else speaks of the view shed. I don't think that word is in the dictionary, so I'll use my vista. But I want to preserve it, but what I propose as when and if we make that purchase, that at the same time, and a young lady just mentioned this, is I think we're blessed to be paying, if we pay for it, $10 million rather than $20 million, because there's a referendum that was back in 2006. I'm not sure the exact term of it, but it provided the Township Board of Commissioners with a majority vote to spend $20 million to acquire open space. I would like, to make me feel good as a prudent taxpayer, and also to make me feel good as a citizen of Radnor, to have my cake and eat it too. Essentially, have Ardrossan, buy it, because that's what we're going to do, and then ask the commissioners to actually propose, submit to the public, to put a moratorium or sunset the remaining balance of that $20 million debt ability. And to do that, whether it be just a promise, a personal promise to the citizens, or to put it in writing through an ordinance, I'm not sure if it's possible. And I also understand the existing ordinance has a sunset within it. I'm not sure when that is, but I think it allows a couple, 3 more years to essentially look for other properties if that's the case. And one thing I've understood through this process and listening is that this $20 million debt mechanism was really designed, pointed towards Ardrossan. I mean, that's what the design was back in 2006. Certainly open space, but it says in there for significant land acquisition, Ardrossan. So let's take the winnings, let's make the purchase, but let's put a moratorium or sunset the remainder and go home. And I can feel better as a prudent taxpayer that we're not going to spend any more or go buy out, spend any more in terms of debt, and I get what I want. One proposal from one person. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip.
Hi, I'm Laurie Mikulas. I live at 556 West Wayne Avenue. We've lived here for 30 years. Our kids went to Radnor schools. The bridge that over Sawmill Creek, I think it's Sawmill, whatever it is, that wonderful bridge that's been built 3 times now for various reasons, was my son's Eagle project. My other son, who's also an Eagle Scout, part of his project was the trail behind the willows. If it hadn't been for the foresight of people, commissioners, sitting where you, well, not exactly where you are, because they didn't have this building, but in your position, many, many years ago, we wouldn't have the willows or any of that beautiful land. We wouldn't have Ardrossan. We wouldn't have the trails. We wouldn't have all of the wonderful parks we have now. I drove by yesterday. There were kids sliding on Ardrossan. My kids slid on, that's where they spent their winters. Other people go to the willows. This is not just for us. And I know we have to dig into our pocketbooks for this. But the reality is, we need to think about the future. We need to think about the generations to come after us, for our children's children, and for what we are leaving to them. Because once it's gone, as everybody has said, it doesn't come back. People don't go knocking down houses and making parks out of it. It just doesn't happen I'm sure it happens on very slim occasions, but I don't know of any around here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is the AV, Leslie Morgan, 12 Farm Road, is the AV, okay, thank you. Okay. I guess my comments tonight, since this may be our last time to comment, are a little in connection with Phil and the woman who wants the rest of the investment lots protected. I guess she was saying that she'd like to limit the development. I think most of my comments have been around allocation of open space through the zoning code. We've learned a lot, I think, together. How we can do that through density modification. I'm very sad, I think we all are, that it didn't get done down in the rye field. It would have let us have a lot more money and a lot more power to maybe even protect more. That being said, if it cannot be done, then what I was thinking is I came up with an idea as well. I have tonight blown up the preservation rate of return analysis. That's what I call it. This is done at the Natural Lands Trust. It's done at any preservation foundation. They see a lot of deals, you guys, and they go through an analysis, whether it's a good deal or a bad deal. Everybody likes all open space, but some open space gets funded and some doesn't. And they go through a certain way. They look at it two ways. How much of the tract are they saving? Typically, they save 100%. That's what we hear. And congratulations, by the way, Elaine, on getting the $1 million. I think that's great. But you see that there's many counties in Pennsylvania, and they have gotten awarded as much, less, and more. And I was thinking, why did each one get awarded that kind of money? In most of those cases, in fact, I would think all, it's because they saved the entire tract when you're talking about preservation. And then there's something called limited development. Say they might take a harder project like what we have here. We have a harder project, you guys. It's just harder. You can't save the whole Ardrossan because our 20 million wasn't going to be enough to save it. But we can use that money in a negotiated way to get the most bang for the buck. You can use it through zoning, and you can use it with writing a check. So I came up with this preservation rate of return analysis after I've talked and learned from you guys and other people how they strike a deal. They take the acres saved compared to if they can't save some. In most cases, it's 100%. In our case, it's much less than that. They also look at preservation a different way. If you're saving development, they look at how many houses are you stopping from that purchase. And so in the quarry tracts and the Wheeler tract, you're 100% and 100%. As I said the last time, those are good candidates in terms of preservation because they're 100%. You're saving 100% of the development on each of those tracts. On the quarry, they say you can build 8, you're saving 8 units, and you're saving the whole tract from all development. On the Wheeler, I think it's 11, you're saving all the houses. This is from Gannett Fleming, not my numbers. And you're saving all those 11 houses that Gannett Fleming says we can build, and you're saving the whole tract. You get to the rye field, and it's very problematic from the viewpoint of not me, from actually how preservationists look at this. You're taking a tract, and you're only saving, I think it's, if you look at here, if we can zero in here maybe, because I did blow it up. We're saving 20% of the land. If you look at developmental units, it's 18. That's on the whole tract. All 3 tracts together, it's a 20% land save and 18. And you say, why? Because I just said 2 tracts were 100 and 100. It's because the rye field drags this thing down, way down. The rye field is a 9% land save and a 14% unit save. And I had said before, and I didn't have all my numbers because I was rushing around, but I've looked at this again and cleaned it up. I think these are very good numbers. The way you can up the return, which I think we all want in this room, is you get the investment lots in a much more concrete form of what is being proposed. The applicant has definitely said in his heart he does not want to put any more houses on the investment lots. He has said that many, many times during the conditional use hearing that I attended. And I think that he cannot do that because of the IRS. So we understand that. It's a timing mechanism. So what I came up with is, how do you strengthen our ability to negotiate in a fair and reasonable way? And one of the things in real estate that you can use, and I'm just passing this along because some of you have said you're not real estate people. You could buy and carry on with the agreement on this Wheeler and the quarry tract. I would option the rye and wait until he can foment his IRS situation, or whatever the word would be, and make sure that his promise to us and what he has said under oath and in the conditional use hearing, since he won't legally bind it, that it is not developed. And then you would close on the option on the rye field, since it does not really, it's a failure on a preservation return. It is, factually. Don't get mad at me for saying it. It's not my numbers. It's not how I calculate. It's how your preservation people from over in the Natural Lands Trust, they look at these.
Leslie, just to let you know, we're over 5 minutes.
Okay. I'll wrap up here just like the other lady who went about a minute and a half over. So what I would suggest is that you somehow get some teeth in this. It will make you feel great. And it is a since he wants the same thing and we want the same thing, it should be no big deal. That's what I have to say. And so I have that. I just didn't make copies, but and that will bring, in the end, if you do that, that will bring your rate of return on the to 45% for the deal and 64% on the units. So that would be really good. It would be a jump of 18 to 64%. And it would make us feel like you've really worked really hard. And he wants this too. So I don't think that it would be a big difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie.
Hi, Mark Knight. I live on Glen Lane, one of the only unpaved roads in Radnor Township. And I grew up hacking around in the streams and swamps near the now Radnor Trail back when it was a mess. And that's really turned out pretty well. All I'm going to say is this deal has been studied for years. We've been planning for this for years. We've had input from Shelburne Farms in Vermont. We've had input from the Biltmore Estate. I mean, I think it's time to make the decision, the hard decision, and just approve the deal. Thank you.
Good evening, John Fisher. I'm sorry I was out of town for your first 3 or 4 hearings, and I apologize in advance if I say something that you've heard countless times before. As a former president of the Conservancy, it will not come as a surprise to anyone that I strongly support the acquisition of a portion of Ardrossan. I'm sure you have already heard every conceivable reason why you should either purchase or not purchase Ardrossan, so I don't think I have much to add to that discussion. Instead, what I would like to address tonight is a process question which I find to be very troublesome. It has been suggested this matter be submitted to a referendum. I think this is a bad idea, not because I'm concerned about the outcome of a referendum. I think a referendum would be approved by somewhere between 60 and 70% of the voters, probably a 10 to 20% drop off from the 80% that supported the bond issue. But I think it's a bad idea both from a governance standpoint and from a strategy standpoint. First, from a governance standpoint, the electors voted for you 7 people to administer and run this township. You can't go to the voters every time there's a difficult issue to resolve. Once you set the precedent of having a referendum on Ardrossan, there's nothing to prevent any of your constituents standing before you like I am tonight saying that other tough issues like Villanova or Biomed should also be submitted to arbitration and referendums. Second, the 7 of you know more about the issues involved in this case than probably anyone else in the township with the possible exception of staff. Even though the 7 of you, after reviewing all the facts, may not arrive at the same conclusion, you are far more qualified to sort through the difficult issues involved in this transaction than is the average Radnor resident. Third, if you had a referendum, it would be next May. A low turnout primary is going to attract primarily the people that are diehards on both sides of the issue, and you are not likely to know in May any more about how the average Radnor resident feels about this transaction than you know from having heard from people over the past several weeks. The referendum is also bad strategy. Having spent my entire professional career as a commercial real estate lawyer, I think I have a feel for the ebb and flow of this kind of complex transaction. The seller has presented you with an offer. Delay in accepting or rejecting the offer only benefits you if you think the delay will ultimately result in a better deal than has been offered to you today. If you thought you could get a better deal, then I assume that you would still be at the negotiating table and not here tonight seeking approval to accept the offer that has been made to you. Therefore, Delaying or either accepting or rejecting this deal offers no, it seems to be useful purpose, and as I will explain, in the long run may result in a deal that's less attractive to the township than the deal that's on the table tonight. At this point, the seller has gleaned that there are at least 4 votes to accept his offer. If it suddenly becomes apparent that it will be at least 6 weeks until he has a deal, and worse yet, whether he has a deal at all depends on the vagaries of a referendum, then the seller is naturally going to start to reconsider his position. He's already submitted alternative conditional use applications to deal with just this possibility. In my opinion, what is important to understand is that if the seller gets his approvals before an agreement of sale is signed, then the negotiating process changes entirely because the seller will have the approvals for his fallback position. Let's assume you decide to submit this matter to a referendum in May, and let's assume the voters approve it. Let's also assume that in the interim, the seller is very successful in selling the remainder of Ardrossan. Not an outrageous assumption to make. What is important to the deal that's on the table to the seller right now is that it provides him the cash he needs to sell the rest of Ardrossan. If, however, he is successful in the meantime in selling other lots, then the township deal becomes less important to him. And a deal that might be acceptable to the seller today may not be acceptable to him in May because it's less important to him. Now, I've heard it argued that there's plenty of time for referendum because the settlement date under the agreement of sale is not until 2015. I think this misses the point. The seller may very well have good reasons for not wanting the cash until 2015. What is important to the seller is to know now that he has a deal. If he begins to perceive that he might not have a deal, as I said, he will begin to reconsider his position. And the delay and the uncertainty over the next 6 months might very well weaken the township's position and result in a deal that you may not ultimately be willing to accept. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Elaine Scherer, 231 South Avenue. First of all, I want to say what John just said was great. You can't put it off because it might not be there, which is another reason. But over the years, when I first moved to Radnor Township 58 years ago, I'm in my house for 56, I lived across the street from an estate. And it was sold in the early 1980s. It was, it's now Trianon. And it probably wasn't something that was, what would you say, feasible for open space. But yet houses were built there. And over the years, I've seen a lot of building going on, creeping. And so we have this time now and this opportunity to buy this land, which we approved. And I don't think we can delay it any longer. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine.
Hi there. Katrina Ogleby, Orchard Way. I'm just here to say how excited my husband and I are about this plan and commend you for the vision you've shown on this board to even go this route. I've been in this in the township 25 years, and there have been a lot of opportunities where the board has taken sort of the quick road and not shown a long-term vision. And here you have the opportunity to really create something special for generations to come. And I'm very grateful for all the time and the work the effort that you've shown and just the study to make it this far. And I also, I know you've heard this before, but the quick cash up front looks great. People are happy, but a development of this magnitude, of course, has back costs. And Newtown is an example. What would happen here to our schools? We can't go through another school debate. Roads, fire, police, if this were developed to a maximum. It would be a great shame, and this is our best opportunity. So I urge you, please, to accept forthwith. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina. Do we have any other people who'd like to speak?
Hi. Laura Lucre, 808 Milmar Road, Ward 4. For the long vision. For almost 10 long years, the future of the Ardrossan property has been in question. Countless of land trust professionals, private individuals, and the Radnor Township staff have run through ideas to how to save this land. Many of these ideas were suggested to the family, but since Bob Scott's death and Eddie Scott III appointed authority to represent the family, these ideas were never accepted. One cannot say that many people didn't try very, very hard. Eddie Scott has always wanted to develop this land, and now the economy is in his favor. This is his life project. He will develop it, whether we like it or not. By right, he could have every 2 acres built on, but he has chosen density modification to bring down the amount of homes built. So the scenario could be a lot worse. It could be like Newtown Square, with every lot filled. I have sat in all 4 conditional use hearings and seen how the parties in standing have tirelessly testified against the plan. I hope this process can bring some compromises. I am deeply sorry for those who have homes that look right onto the property. I wish the Montgomery Scott family had more sensitivity and cared about their legacy. I also wish Eddie Scott would stick to one plan and not have so many variables as to what is really going to happen. All that being said, he is the developer and he has the right to develop it the way he wants within the town ordinances. Eddie Scott needs this money from the selling of the 3 outer parcels to start his interior development. He can sell it to the township to stay as open space, or he can sell it to the next developer who will build at least 24 houses on the 3 parcels. And yes, this land is totally developable. From a developer's point of view, the land is a good price per acre, and those parcels are very spectacular. So either way, he is going to get the money from these 3 parcels to develop the interior property of Ardrossan. That part is not going to go away. But what will go away is the open space. If by stalling and taking another referendum vote on the $20 million, $10 million bond, it is only going to do one thing: put houses on those parcels. This lag in timing will give an outside developer the ability to buy these 3 parcels and build homes there. I ask you, do you care about more traffic, more stormwater runoff, eliminating environmental habitats, and looking at a lot of new homes as you drive through this part of Radnor? I can tell you my answer is I do care. I chose to live in Radnor 13 years ago because of this area, and I suspect most of you enjoy this part of town whether you live in it or not, just as I enjoy the town of Wayne, even though I don't live in it or next to it. As we all know, the township vote in favor to purchase the 3 parcels will have to pay a tax for 15 years in proportion to the value of your house. I have no problem with this. I am gladly able to eliminate a few dinners out each year. I see this as a long-term benefit. The land will not go away. It's not a car that will die. I will be able to enjoy this open space, and so will all the people in the future. Ask yourself another question. In 10 to 20 years, when the squeeze of the outdoor activity is at its premium, especially on the Radnor Trail, which it already is, I am so glad I voted not to keep this land open and put houses there for those other people? Or will you say, I'm so glad I paid my portion to keep this land open for not only me to enjoy, but everyone else? The Scott family will build homes on the interior of the property no matter whether we like it or not, but we can save some of the land to be shared by all. Change is always happening. You can try to stop it or work with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Good evening. I'm Chet Harrington. I live at 757 Newtown Road, and my property abuts the Ardrossan estate. I have listened to many very interesting comments this evening, and I'm very pleased that there will be a public hearing. Is that true on the 16th? Is that right? Do you have a date?
The 16th, we have advertised the vote, and there will be a chance for public
There will
comment
be
and hearing.
a public
Sure.
hearing. That's good news, because then the public will be heard, and the public will have their comments. I am tonight just saying that I would like to know more about the negotiations, the way they were handled. I think we deserve to know more about the inside information that hasn't become public about how the properties were negotiated. I'm also very against having cluster homes built on what is beautiful land of 40 acres that was a historical encampment of Washington's army. And so I want to go on record with the commissioners to say that I think you should think very carefully, listen to the comments by the hearing officer when he gives his report at that time. And our legal counsel has sent you a copy of some information that you received today. And it was written to Mr. Bolo, but he copied you so that you would understand the legal position that's being taken. So I thank you all, and I hope that you all have your consciences in order, and that you will be on deck on the 16th when the public has their hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harrington.
Hello. I'm Rosie Elliot.
I'm Mila Glassman.
We live 130 Bidoff Road.
I would love to know that my children's children have a place to run around. If we get too crowded, the next generations to come will not have enough space. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. A comment? That was a really good one to end on, I have to say. Well, we all appreciate you all coming out again, another full house to have comments and to hear your thoughts about this potential purchase. As you may know, we had voted at our last commissioners meeting to advertise so that we could, if it was appropriate, take the vote, excuse me, on the next meeting, which is the 16th. So I'd like to just have a short discussion with my colleagues at this point about whether you feel we need to have the fifth public meeting about this. We had scheduled a fifth meeting on December 18th, which we could still do and put off the final vote if you feel that you still need to hear from people and that there's still material that you haven't heard. Or if you think we can go ahead and cancel the 18th and schedule the vote, or have the vote as scheduled on the 16th. So if I could get some input from you all?
I think that we should vote with the sentiment of We've been looking at it. We've made our individual determinations. So my sense is it's time for us to take a vote and move forward one way or the other.
Okay. Is there any commissioner who would prefer that we do not vote on the 16th and that we have another hearing on the 18th? Okay, well, then I'm going to go ahead.
Also, if we have the hearing on the 18th, we're only delaying, as I understand it, we would only delay the vote by 5 to 7 days, correct?
Right, we would have a
So it
fifth
isn't
hearing
like-
and then schedule a special
And we would likely have
meeting.
that hearing 2 days, or that vote 2 days before Christmas, which would be
Or
problematic.
the week after Christmas,
Yes.
which is equally problematic.
Problematic for,
Right. So the vote would then be scheduled towards the end of the month. But okay, so having heard that feedback, I'm going to go ahead and announce that we will indeed be taking the vote as scheduled and as advertised on the 16th. And if you go home tonight and think of something that you should have said but you didn't say, you are absolutely welcome to come on the 16th. We will have public comment again at that point before we vote. And that is the schedule. Does anybody have anything else to add? All right, well, again, thank you all for coming out tonight, and we will see you on the 16th. Thanks.